Hey guys, thank you for watching the Slat Rock channel, and today we present you with 7 WWE wrestlers who saved others' lives. Number 7. Shad Gaspard. Former WWE superstar Shad Gaspard nailed a real-life armed robber at a Florida convenience store in December 2016. Gaspard and his Crime Time tag team partner JTG stopped at a gas station after a wrestling show. Shad entered the convenience store to grab a drink, while JTG and company stayed in the car. Coral Springs PD informed the local news authorities that they responded to a call around midnight for an attempted armed robbery at the store. According to police, the suspect appeared to be drunk, walked up to Shad and said, "Hey man, buy me a beer." When Shad said, "There's a better way to ask than that," police say the suspect whipped out his firearm. The store clerk says Shad quickly shoved the suspect against the cooler door, grabbed the guy's gun, and later pulled him outside into the street and placed the robber into a rear naked chokehold. At this point, JTG and co. noticed what was happening and videotaped the scene and called police, alerting them to the scene of the crime. Shad said he was trying to remove the gun's magazine when he saw an air canister compartment and realized it was just a BB gun. The 6'7", 300-pound ex-WWE wrestler took over at that point, taking the dumbass to the ground and holding him until officers arrived. Shad risked his life to prevent an armed robbery. When asked about this, Shad said, "Come on man, I didn't want to die in Florida." Next up, number 6, Davari. Muhammad Hassan and Davari were among the most hated wrestling heels of the Ruthless Aggression era. Mark Kopani, who was born in Syracuse, New York, played the role of Muhammad Hassan. WWE brought Hassan and Davari, his manager, together to play the role of Arab Americans who felt that American people automatically and unfairly assumed they were terrorists in post-9/11 USA. His career came to an abrupt end when a controversial terrorism storyline coincided with the July 7, 2005 London bombings, leading the television network UPN to pressure WWE to remove Kopani's character from television. After Hassan faded into obscurity, he moved to LA and eventually released a graphic novel with Shad Gaspard. Davari continued on the indie circuit, worked for TNA and WWE, and in March 2012, Davari became a bit of a superhero on public transit. While riding a light rail train, he saw a drunken man berating other passengers and threatening violence. When the drunk dude became especially belligerent towards several passengers, hurling racial insults and death threats, Davari decided to lay the smackdown. With a rear naked choke and leg scissors, the former heel restrained the drunk until the next stop, where he tossed him off the train. When asked about this whole deal, he said, "It's one of those things where I'd rather be safe than sorry. If the police are taking too long to respond, I'd rather not sit on my hands and wait for them to show up." He also added that he was a big guy, 280 pounds. "I had to lug him out the door. It was like throwing out a dead ox." Thankfully, the whole thing was caught on camera. Moving on, number 5, Chuck Palumbo. Remember this guy? Or this guy? Yeah guys, Chuck Palumbo, aka Jungle Jim, aka The Dude, is a real-life superhero. This big guy lifted a freaking car to save someone from a wreck. In early January of 2016, Palumbo was driving down a rural road near his home in El Cajon, California, when he spotted a car on the wrong side of the road, tipped over on its side. Chuck pulled ahead of the vehicle and sprung into action. Speaking to the local authorities, Chuck said, "I looked in the car and noticed just one person in the car, a woman who seemed to be going in and out of consciousness." Chuck adds, "I noticed she was pinned between the steering wheel and her arm was pinned under the car. I was able to lift the car enough so that she could move her arm out." Chuck later climbed onto the top of the passenger side of the vehicle and released her seatbelt, then proceeded to lift the woman out of the car and sat her down on the ground and made sure she was okay. He saw a fire engine approach him and didn't want to hang around and answer questions, so he jumped into his truck and headed on his way. Guys, I'm sure Billy will be proud of Chuck. Number 4, Chris Masters. Folks, the masterpiece Chris Masters was at the right place at the right time. Police were called to Diane Mordetsky's Los Angeles home after a neighbor had barricaded himself inside. The crazed neighbor had apparently shouted through the front door and threatened to set the house on fire to keep police out of the home. Chris said his uncle, who lives nearby, called to alert him that his mother was the subject of an apparent hostage situation. The 30-year-old, whose real name is Chris Mordetsky, arrived on the scene when the house was already in flames. But the fire didn't stop Masters from rescuing his mother. The 6'4", 265-pound wrestling star bear-hugged a 10-foot ficus tree standing in the way of the window to his mom's room and wrenched it out of the way so he and police could break the window and pull his mom to safety. Speaking to the local authorities, he said, "Saved my mom's life. Son of a bitch barricaded my mom in her apartment and set the place on fire. I broke my mom's window with police help and pulled her out. So thankful my mom's alive." He tweeted with a photo of the burned-out home. Masters posted a photo of several lacerations he sustained on his left arm during the incident on Facebook. The neighbor was later pulled from the home and charged with arson. It's unclear what set off the neighbor. Number 3. Bam Bigelow. In July 2000, a house was burning down near his home. He knew there were 3 children stuck inside and that the firemen would not be able to arrive in time, so he somehow managed to go through the flames and rescued all 3 kids. As a result, he received second-degree burns over 40% of his body and spent 2 months recovering in the hospital. But he successfully saved all 3 of the kids' lives, whom, thanks to him, were barely even hurt. When asked about the situation, he said, "This is the best move I ever made." Guys, imagine being a choking, panicking, crying child and seeing this huge man appear through the smoke and the flames, grab you and your siblings, and carry you off to safety? God bless you, Bam Bam. Next up, number 2, Perry Saturn. Perry Saturn was driving his girlfriend to work in Atlanta when he stumbled upon a woman being raped by 2 men. Being a badass Army Ranger, he stepped down from his car and took matters into his own hands. He managed to fight off the 2 attackers, and during that fight, Saturn was shot once in the neck and once in the shoulder. Guys, Saturn must have been so full of adrenaline that he actually thought the one to his shoulder was a punch. I can't even imagine what it felt like, especially once all that wore off and all he felt was the pain. A pain that was so intense it sent him spiraling down into addiction. Meth was Saturn's drug of choice. As you could imagine, that did not help matters. He ended up homeless not long after. Surprisingly, Perry didn't have medical insurance too, and has incurred quite a bit of medical expenses. All Perry Saturn got in return for his heroics were 2 bullets from a .25 caliber handgun and years of hardship. Bill Apter interviewed Perry and said the following: "What struck me the most about that exchange is the fact that he never brings up the woman. He focuses on himself and his personal failings. He could have mentioned that, due to his actions, he now has a steel plate and 3 stainless steel screws where his C5, C6, and C7 vertebrae in his neck were badly injured, but he doesn't. He never once tries to use his heroics to score points." Number 1. Bray Wyatt. The story starts off after leaving a WWE live event on a fine Sunday evening. Bray Wyatt and JTG were road buddies. They were traveling in one car. They were following their other road buddies, Big E and company, to the next city for Monday Night Raw. Big E and company were the first to leave the arena. After a good 15 to 20 minutes, Bray and JTG started and got on the highway. As they were traveling and discussing about the wrestling business, suddenly from nowhere, a car from behind sideswiped them. Even though they were a little surprised, they were alright and they could see the driver drive recklessly. Both Bray and JTG wanted to teach them a lesson and started to chase. Their plan was to speed past the car, stop in front of them, and pull the dudes out and teach them a lesson in road safety. As they were approaching, the unthinkable happened. The driver lost control and did 6 complete barrel rolls into the side of the highway. JTG said that he and Bray were surprised and shocked. They pulled up a few yards behind the wreckage, and it was really bad. The airbags were deployed and the car was upside down and smoking heavily. At this point, JTG said to himself, "You don't go near an upside-down smoking vehicle because they are waiting to blow up." They heard screaming and crying. When they got near the car, JTG saw what he described as teenage swiping stupid assholes. Bray's instant reaction was to help, but JTG was hesitant. JTG said, "You clearly don't watch enough Hollywood movies, do you? I'm not going anywhere near that car." JTG walked away and started calling 911 and looked for the highway marker to let the dispatcher know their exact location. Bray didn't wait. He pulled out a teenage girl from the backseat window. He told her to get away from the vehicle and go near JTG, who was far away from the car. The girl's shoulder was slightly hurt and was pleading JTG not to inform their parents. The car was catching up more fire, but Wyatt was trying hard to pull out the driver. Bray couldn't do it alone as the driver's seatbelt was stuck. Bray shouted to JTG to come over and help him. JTG replied, "Damn it, Bray, you're a heel. Leave it to the professionals. I don't want to go nowhere near that ticking time bomb." but Bray was adamant. So JTG grew some balls and went over to help him out. Finally, they pulled out the driver, who was also a teenage girl. Surprisingly, the first thing that came out of the driver was, "My dad is gonna kill me, please don't tell my dad." Both Bray and JTG didn't know how to react. It turns out they were running late to their high school game and hence were rushing. Bray and JTG saw an ambulance coming and learned that the police were on their way in 15 minutes, and so they left. Bray and JTG met Biggie and company, who were waiting for them at a nearby gas station. JTG said he never heard Bray brag once about being a hero. He also asked me not to inform his bravery to anyone, but JTG couldn't resist. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you can think of any other wrestlers that have saved lives, please let us know in the comments below. If you like this video, hit that thumbs up button, give us a like, and feel free to subscribe to this channel for more videos just like this one. And as always, thanks for watching.